Friends, it seems like just yesterday Canada and the United States were sharing maple syrup and politely disagreeing about hockey. Fast forward to today, and we find ourselves in the middle of a full-blown trade war, complete with tariffs, threats, and enough economic uncertainty to make even the most seasoned economist reach for the antacids. It all started when the United States decided to impose a 25% tariff on imported steel and aluminum, citing national security concerns. Now, I'm no expert on international espionage, but I'm pretty sure Canada isn't planning a hostile takeover of the US with a battalion of moose and a squadron of ice fishing enthusiasts. Of course, Canada, being the polite and reasonable neighbor they are, initially tried to reason with the United States. They pointed out that the two countries have been trading partners for decades, with integrated supply chains and a mutually beneficial economic relationship. They even reminded the US that Canada is a staunch ally, standing shoulder to shoulder in times of conflict. But alas, it seems the pleas of our northern neighbors fell on deaf ears. The US tariffs remained in place, leaving Canada with no choice but to retaliate, and retaliate they did. In a move that surprised absolutely no one, Canada announced retaliatory tariffs on over $100 billion worth of US goods. This carefully calculated counterstrike targeted key industries in the United States, sending a clear message that Canada was not going to be bullied. The list of targeted products reads like a who's who of American exports: motor vehicles, steel, aircraft, beef, pork, you name it. It was a strategic move designed to inflict maximum economic pain on the US while minimizing the impact on Canadian consumers. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, known for his diplomacy and eloquence, didn't mince words when addressing the situation. He called the US tariffs unacceptable and unjustified, emphasizing that a trade war would ultimately harm American families the most. Carney's message was clear: Canada was not backing down. They were prepared to fight fire with fire, even if it meant engaging in a prolonged economic battle with their closest ally. As with any trade war, the first casualties were the economies of both countries. In Canada, the impact was immediate and severe. The Canadian dollar took a nosedive, businesses grew anxious, and consumer confidence plummeted. The unemployment rate shot up, with 33,000 jobs lost in March alone, the worst job loss in over 3 years. Meanwhile, in the United States, the effects were more insidious, but no less real. Prices for consumer goods began to rise as tariffs increased the cost of imported goods. The automotive industry, heavily reliant on Canadian steel and aluminum, started feeling the pinch, with job losses looming on the horizon. Section 4. Global shockwaves, international reactions, and market volatility. The trade war between Canada and the United States sent shockwaves through the global economy. International markets, already jittery from geopolitical tensions, reacted with predictable volatility. The Nikkei, Japan's leading stock market index, experienced a significant drop, while other major indices around the world followed suit. The European Union, already embroiled in its own trade disputes with the United States, expressed deep concern over the escalating tensions. China, no stranger to trade wars, watched the situation closely, wary of the potential impact on its own economy. The consensus among international observers was clear. The trade war between Canada and the United States was bad news for everyone. It threatened to destabilize the global trading system, undermine economic growth, and create a climate of uncertainty and fear. Section 5. A house divided, the U.S. political landscape, amidst trade tensions. Back in the United States, the trade war further deepened the political divide. Democrats, already critical of the administration's trade policies, seized on the opportunity to denounce the tariffs as reckless and harmful. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, never one to shy away from a fight, warned that the tariffs could trigger a recession. He urged Senate Majority Leader John Thune to pass legislation requiring congressional approval for tariffs, hoping to rein in what he saw as an administration gone rogue. However, the president, known for his unwavering belief in his own deal-making abilities, remained defiant. He threatened to veto any legislation that would limit his authority on trade, and even hinted at increasing tariffs on China if they didn't back down from their own retaliatory measures. Section 6. The WTO Crossroads, a dispute resolution mechanism in limbo. In the midst of this trade war chaos, there was one glimmer of hope. the World Trade Organization, or WTO. Canada, as a founding member of the WTO, filed a formal complaint against the United States, alleging that the tariffs violated international trade rules. However, there was a major problem. The WTO's dispute resolution mechanism, once the gold standard for settling trade disputes, had been rendered largely ineffective. This was due in part to the Trump administration's refusal to appoint new judges to the WTO's appellate body, effectively paralyzing the organization's ability to issue binding rulings. With the WTO sidelined, the trade war between Canada and the United States threatened to spiral out of control, with no end in sight. Section 7, The Road Ahead, Potential Long-Term Consequences and the Specter of a Global Trade War. As the trade war between Canada and the United States dragged on, the potential long-term consequences loomed large. The integrated supply chains that had taken decades to build were being disrupted, threatening to permanently damage economic ties between the two countries. Moreover, the trade war risked setting a dangerous precedent. If two of the world's largest and most integrated economies could descend into a tit-for-tat trade battle, what hope was there for other countries? The specter of a global trade war, once a distant threat, was becoming increasingly real. And if that were to happen, everyone would lose.